Resist the Empire, a libertarian view of the Star Wars universe. This is your one-stop shop for news, events, and topics in the Star Wars canon. From a libertarian perspective, here are your hosts, Brian McQuaid and Roger Paxton.
Yep. Welcome to Resist the Empire. My name is Brian McQuaid.
And I'm Roger Paxton.
How are you doing tonight, Roger?
Fantastic as always.
You sent me a couple good stories today, and like every time I'm like, all right, the episode's all set. Like I get a couple right before, like a couple hours before the show. Hey, did you see this? All right.
Force Friday's tomorrow. Of course, we're recording this on Thursday before Force Friday.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, they're releasing new information even up to Force Friday, of course.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing is the Lego Millennium Falcon, which is ginormous. It's 7,541 pieces, and it's only $800. This is the Ultimate Collector Series one.
Yeah.
I have the Slave One Ultimate Collector Series one.
Yeah, I saw that one at your house.
And so like I was pretty excited to see this. This thing's so huge. They give you like this little cart thing to wheel it out to your vehicle.
Right.
That's how big it is. They show this guy holding it, and it's also got that little plaque thing with it. I guess
that was really cool.
Yeah.
It also comes with 10 minifigs. It comes with the original prequel minifigs and the new prequel minifigs.
Yeah.
And I love that you can change out the dish on it and turn it into the new Millennium Falcon versus the old one. I mean, it's a really cool thing. But 800 smackers.
Yeah.
Now, look at how much value the old Millennium Falcon from, what was it, 2007 or whatever, how much it has increased in value.
Yeah.
You know, you can't find one for less than a few thousand these days with all the pieces.
Right.
So that might be a pretty good investment.
It's possible. I don't know, because the one I have I have a Millennium Falcon. It's obviously not this. And I don't think it's a 2007 one, right? It can't be, because it's the one that's got Finn and Rey and BB-8 and a couple of those guys. So I don't know. I hope it goes up in value because I need the money. But so that's pretty cool. Yep. And then you also sent me this Propel. They debuting a new Star Wars drone.
Right.
This is pretty cool.
Three different drones.
Yeah, a couple different drones. Yeah. So it's got the little X-wing there, I guess. Yeah, what do we got here?
Yeah,
X-wing.
We
got the TIE fighter there.
And the speeder bike.
A little speeder bike. Yeah, a little scout speeder bike. That's
and the cool thing about these is they use lasers, so you can actually have, mid-air battles with them and shoot each other, quote, shoot each other down with them, and it'll pick up each other with lasers. Yeah.
So awesome. I want some of that.
They're a couple $100 a piece, but I think I'm going to pick up a couple for me and the boys eventually, maybe at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Because that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they look pretty cool. So we dropped those links at the top of the show notes if you guys are interested. So I pre-ordered Battlefront 2. I got the Elite Trooper Deluxe Edition, right?
Yeah.
So the reason I got that wasn't because it comes with 3 days early access. I got it because it comes with all these upgrades and abilities and star cards and stuff. Because I'm going to need all the help I can get. It's just not... These aren't my kind of games, so I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, Reagan and I were talking about, my oldest kid, we're talking about this actually last night. We're both going to, because we have two Xboxes, one upstairs for the boys that they actually paid for with their own money that they made from selling stuff at the market, and mine is downstairs. So we're going to have to buy two copies
Sure,
play with
absolutely.
each other. So we're super stoked.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Looking forward to that. And then real quick before we get started, my buddy Adam Pattison, he has an Instagram account. He's got like 6,000 something followers.
Wow.
It's Mandalorian40. And I just wanted to let our listeners know, go check it out if you get a chance. What he does is he takes photos of Star Wars action figures and poses as if like they're an actual person standing there. So like they're very like up close shots, and it looks like, it's someone standing in this, atmosphere or whatever.
Nice.
And, they're pretty cool looking. They're really cool looking.
I'll link to that in the show notes too. That's really cool.
Cool. Yeah.
Tatooine Times. Here's the latest news you need to know from the Star Wars canon movies, TV shows, books, comics, and more.
Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi film in the works.
Man, I cannot tell you how happy this made me.
How long? How long we've been waiting for this?
Oh my goodness, man. I mean, there's so many different ways they could take this. I cannot, I say this about a lot of Star Wars stuff, but I think that this is the most exciting Star Wars news that I've heard since they said that they were going to start doing new Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
I mean, this one I am so stoked about.
Yeah, my best friend is probably the biggest Obi-Wan Kenobi fan in the world.
Yeah.
Of course, his name's Ben, too. So.
Right.
But, so this is from Hollywood Reporter. Stephen Daldry is Star Wars' newest hope. The Oscar-nominated director behind Billy Elliot and The Hours is in early talks to helm a Star Wars standalone movie centering on Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Hollywood Reporter has learned. Sources say talks are at the earliest of stages and that the project has no script. If a deal is made, Daldry would oversee the development and writing with Lucasfilm brass. The Obi-Wan Kenobi standalone is one of several projects being developed by Lucasfilm and Disney that fall outside the trilogies telling the saga of the Skywalker family. A Han Solo movie is now in the final stages of shooting under new director Ron Howard, and Lucasfilm is also considering picks centered on Yoda and bounty hunter Boba Fett, among other characters. Now, that's kind of one we've heard before, and then that project fell through, and it seems like now maybe they're bringing that one back. Daldry hails from the theater world and made his feature debut with 2000's Billy Elliot, which netted him his first directing Oscar nomination. He followed that up with searing dramas The Hours and The Reader, which also netted him directing nominations. Daldry most recently directed episodes of Netflix period drama The Crown, which garnered him an Emmy nomination.
The Crown was a great show. Yeah. My wife and I, of course, my wife is really big into period television shows and stuff, so we watch every one of them that comes out. The Crown was at the top of those. I mean, it's a premier show. Really enjoyed that. So if he was involved in that, I've got to give him some props. I don't know anything else about the guy.
Nice.
But that's exciting to begin with. The question that I heard about on so many Star Wars podcasts about this is, who's going to be the villain? So many people have said, oh, well, it could be Darth Vader. Come on, that doesn't make sense.
No.
I mean, the first time that Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi saw each other after the events of the prequel trilogy, Darth Vader is saying things like, oh, I haven't felt this since, it's obviously been a long time since they've seen each other.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you could make that happen, Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi happening between those two events, between the time he chopped his legs off and the time in A New Hope.
What would you suggest? What character do you think?
You could come up with a new character, and I think
that's true.
And I think that would probably be best because we don't know how much and what goes on Tatooine. Of course, it is possible that he could even leave Tatooine.
Right.
That's certainly possible. There's nothing that says that he was on Tatooine 24/7 while Luke was there.
Yeah, though, I mean, from our reading of the comics recently, it seems like he did not leave there at all.
Right.
I think what would be cool is if we were going to go with one character where we don't really have, the full story ending on him, or we haven't really seen, kind of anything, would be Cad Bane.
I heard, it may have been a Rebel Force Radio that mentioned he would be a good character. And he would be. I think that would be great. Another one that would be really good, in my opinion, is Boba Fett. We know that Boba Fett was on Tatooine.
Yep.
We know that, it's at different points. Yep. He obviously had ties with Jabba, who was on Tatooine. Yep. That would be kind of neat.
Yeah, but a new character, that would be awesome as well. So,
sure. I mean, in several podcasts to make this case that, we keep looking at the same characters.
Sure.
It makes the universe seem small.
Yep.
So bring in
something else.
Bring in somebody from the comics.
Expand it.
Or something. Or bring in somebody from Legends that we haven't seen in canon yet.
Sure.
There's a million different ways you could go with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would definitely love to see that. You mentioned the Yoda. I don't know that I want to see his origins. There's something.
Well, I don't know that it would be an origin story.
I hope not.
I hope
something
not
about the mystery behind him that and the mystery of what is his species.
Yeah,
I like some mystery. I don't need to know every single detail.
Yeah, Lucas never wanted that revealed.
Yeah,
and I think it should stay that way. And I don't necessarily think that they wouldn't let it. I mean, we know that Yoda's very old, right? So he's got plenty of story to tell. Sure. Possibly, during the Republic years or before. So yeah. So that'd be cool. Since we're talking about Boba Fett, long rumored Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett spinoffs reportedly in development.
Yeah, now keep in mind, both of these stories, neither one of them have been confirmed by Disney yet. Yep. So there's still speculation. But That's what's being reported.
Yeah, so this is from JoeBlow.com. Variety, and they're quoting Variety here, is reporting that according to sources, standalone films featuring Jabba the Hutt and Boba Fett are currently in development over at Disney and Lucasfilms. The news comes fresh off of yesterday's announcement that a standalone adventure featuring the Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi is currently being worked on with Billy Elliot, director Stephen Daldry on board to helm the Star Wars spinoff. For the moment, there's no script penned for the Obi-Wan Kenobi film, nor are there materials set for the Jabba the Hutt or Boba Fett spinoffs. Both of the latter films I've just mentioned have been rumored for quite some time, with many fans climbing the walls for a chance to see their favorite franchise bounty hunter in a dedicated film.
So most things that I've heard is that the Boba Fett series would probably be a series about a group of bounty hunters. Now, we know that Boba Fett worked with groups of bounty hunters before he went out on his own. He worked with a group in with the Saj Ventures. What was that
Saj
book?
Venture, yeah.
Oh, gosh, the book... the book.
I know. Dark Disciple.
Dark Disciple, right. So he was working with a group then, including Dengar and others. So it'd be great to see that, maybe when he was younger.
Sure.
So I think that would be good. I don't know that a standalone Boba Fett movie would really be all that great unless there were a group of other bounty hunters for him to interact with and play off of.
Yeah, I can see them doing kind of like either like a Dirty Dozen style kind,
that would be fun.
That kind of thing.
Absolutely. You could have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, the Jabba the Hutt one actually intrigues me a lot more, even though I'm a Boba Fett fan. And Jabba, I've never not been like a huge fan of Jabba. I mean, he's an awesome character and unique. But what I like about Jabba the Hutt is I think it could be a really cool movie if they did it in like a Godfather kind of style or something like that. You know what I mean? That is exactly what I thought of when I first heard about that.
Yeah. Well, Collider Video mentioned something about making it a story of the criminal underground, which that would perfectly fit in with the Godfather kind of mystique. Yeah. So I think that would absolutely be great. It would also be interesting to maybe tie part of the Jabba movie into the Han Solo movie, because I'm sure we're probably going to see Jabba in the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
More than likely, they're going to tie that into A New Hope.
Yeah.
To the first trilogy. So maybe even then, again, tie the Jabba movie into the Han Solo movie somehow.
Yeah, I could see that. That would be really fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So EA announces Star Wars Rise to Power strategy game. This is from Screen Rant. Mm-hmm. Star Wars fans, prepare yourselves for a new game announced today by Electronic Arts. Star Wars Rise to Power promises a strategy experience that allows players to launch into a galaxy far, far away through their cell phones. With Star Wars hype preparing to engage the hyperdrive as we approach the premiere of the saga's 8th installment, Last Jedi, December 15th, everyone. We're closing in. And the release of Star Wars Battlefront 2 a month earlier on November 17th, it's no surprise that Lucasfilm has teamed up with EA again to promote the franchise on the mobile phone platform to reach as many fans as possible. Announced on the Star Wars official websites. Not many details have been released about Star Wars Rise to Power yet, but Android users on Google Play are getting a sneak preview by signing up to play the closed pre-alpha test, and if they qualify, they will be able to play the game and provide feedback. Here's the description of the game provided by the EA registration page. It says, in Star Wars Rise to Power, the war between the Empire and the dawning New Republic continues to rage on, and players influence who will ultimately reign supreme. Every move helps to shape the fate of the galaxy in-game as players choose a faction, establish their base, and begin building a fleet of starships. Players will form or join an alliance and engage in epic galactic warfare with other players from around the world in the hopes of emerging victorious. Power is earned by outwitting adversaries in carefully orchestrated attacks and by building a mighty coalition through the loyalty of other players. In Star Wars Rise to Power, players embrace destiny by engaging in diplomacy or deception to ultimately becoming leader of the Empire or New Republic. So I did sign up for this pre-alpha, so I haven't heard anything yet, but I did go to the registration page and sign up for it. So if I get in there, I'll basically be able to tell you that I'm in it, but I'll probably be bound by NDAs.
Yeah, of course. So, and I'm not a big cell phone gamer. Mm-hmm. So, if this is a free game, I'll probably download it and goof off with it when I'm, bored, which is almost never. But other than that, I'm not super excited about this. It could be cool, but I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not a big cell phone gamer, so it's not really my thing.
Yeah, so they're talking about following in step with other mega popular phone games like Pokemon Go, which turned into a global phenomenon overnight. It's exciting. Star Wars Rise to Power will also feature aspects that allow players to connect with each other around the world.
So some sort of VR.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Right. Because it's certainly not like the other games that we have for Star Wars on the
Right.
cell phone right now. So if they incorporate some kind of aspect like that, then I can maybe see this having a lot more popularity.
Well,
than
I mean,
other
Pokemon
stuff.
Go, went crazy there for a couple of months, and then it's pretty much died off.
Pretty
I mean,
much
there
died
are
off,
still
yeah.
quite a few people playing
Yeah,
it, but
yeah.
nothing like the initial base of players.
Right.
So, and the problem with games like that is content.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to have a team behind you pushing
To
more
keep
content.
doing more
If you
things, 'cause
can't push
otherwise
more content,
people-
your player
yeah.
base is going to drop.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree with that. So, so it'll be interesting to kind of see, what happens with that. New Phasma novel. Posters introduce 3 new characters.
Yes, my Phasma novel comes in tomorrow.
Nice.
I can't wait.
Comicbook.com. Since the debut of the Force Awakens trailer, Star Wars fans couldn't wait to learn as much as they could about Captain Phasma, the chrome-armored soldier for the First Order. The character didn't receive much screen time in the theatrical debut, but a new novel, Star Wars Phasma, will shed more light on the character and, based on recent posters for the novel, offer us glimpses at new characters in the Star Wars galaxy. Star Wars Phasma, like you guys couldn't come up with a better title than that.
Right.
One of the posters features a First Order trooper wearing bright red armor and a cape, which is virtually the same armor that Phasma herself wears. Could this be a mentor to Phasma? Could his red armor reveal that he's one of Snoke's Praetorian guards? Whoever he is, he will clearly play an integral part of Phasma's story. Another one of the more interesting characters we've glimpsed appears to look quite the opposite of the trooper above, wearing no armor at all but wielding a staff and donning a robotic leg. That guy looks really cool in the images. All characters will appear on the reverse side of a poster from Phasma, with the final character being a member of the Resistance, with one poster clearly displaying a member of the First Order and another displaying the member of the Resistance. Could the staff-wielding character be more neutral? So that's pretty cool looking. See those other characters there.
Well, I think that for people like me who want to know more about this character, I think this is fantastic. Because not only doing the book, they also have a comic coming out about Phasma as well. Yeah. The comic is going to follow her kind of journey from being thrown in the trash compactor after the Last Jedi, after Force Awakens. And then, seeing how she gets out of that. Yeah. But this book is supposed to be going back into more of her past and kind of more of an origin story. I've got the physical hard copy of the book coming in, and I've also pre-ordered it on Audible as well, because I like to do a kind of a combo for these, big books. Yeah. The audio production of those Audible Star Wars books is just incredible. Audible's expensive, but man, if you can get, because they a lot of times have, get 3 credits for this great deal. I always jump on those because it's worth the price because the audio quality is incredible. Yeah. But I like to have a physical copy of the book to go on my bookshelf.
Sure, absolutely.
But this one I'm really excited about. And I think seeing these new characters, they also released kind of a segment of the book, like a chapter of the book on the internet as well. And I read that, and the writing of it sounds really, really good. Going back to the title, you mentioned, Phasma. That's kind of something they've been doing. They've got Thrawn, Tarkin, Phasma. I kind of like that because it's it doesn't give away anything about the story, but it tells you what's going on. It tells you who you're following,
who you're looking at.
And I think that's important. So I'm not as upset about the title. I think I actually kind of like it. Just going with something simple.
That's cool.
So
I'm just busting on them. Michael K. Williams. Cut from Han Solo film, JediNews.co.uk. With Ron Howard taking the reins of the still shooting Han Solo movie, it was inevitable that thematic changes would occur. Casual observers can see that the film is ticking over nicely, but regrettably there are casualties of the film's new direction, and one of those is actor Michael K. Williams, who has been trimmed from the production due to his unavailability. I felt great about what I created with the directors that I worked with. It is what it is. We created a kick-ass character, in my opinion. I'm proud of it. When Ron Howard got hired to finish out the film, there were some reshoot issues that needed to be done in regards to my character in order for it to match a new direction, which the producers wanted Ron to carry the film in. And that would have required me on a plane a month ago to London, to Pinewood, to do reshoots. But I'm here on location in Africa. It's scheduling. I'm not going to be back on the market until the end of November after Hap and Leonard. And for them to wait that long for me, that would have pushed back the release date, which I believe is in May of 2018. They wanted me now. I couldn't go. So they had to clip. Yep. He seems cool with the situation, but it appears that the door isn't closed to further collaborations in the galaxy far, far away. I don't think that me not being in the Star Wars family is final. I left with a very good taste in my mouth about the whole family, and I hope that I left a good taste in their mouth. They're a great group of people, the Lucas family. So disappointing because he's a really cool actor.
Did you ever see The Wire?
Yes. Or some of it. I didn't see all of it.
He was incredible in that show. That show would not have been what it was without him and the way that he carried that show. Yeah. I'm super bummed about this, especially when they talk about his character. We don't see a lot of hybrid characters, half human, half alien in the Star Wars universe, not in the canon anyway.
Right.
So I think that would have been a really cool character.
Yeah.
But clearly it was a pretty minor part, because if they can just clip it out like that without any problem, it was a pretty minor part and really has no impact on the story anyway.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see him come back for something else.
Yeah.
Maybe the Jabba movie. Maybe it's some wow.
Sure, why not? Yeah. Speaking of Michael K. Williams, he says Emilia Clarke's character is named Kira in the Han Solo movie, and of course now it's been updated.
Yeah.
So this is StarWarsUnderworld.com. Even though his character has sadly been cut from the upcoming untitled Han Solo, Michael K. Williams still knows a thing or two about that movie. The actor was interviewed by Julie Miller in Vanity Fair recently about all of his upcoming projects, including the Han Solo film, and he dropped some interesting tidbits about the film, including the name of a previously unreleased character, or unnamed character. According to Williams, the character played by Game of Thrones star Emilia Clarke is named Kira in the Han Solo film. The actor describes the role he would have played in the films as a link between Han Solo and Emilia's character, Kira. So Emilia Clarke's character is named Kira in the film, and this is the second name of a new character we've learned after Woody Harrelson's revealed that his character's name is Beckett in an interview. It will be interesting to see how these characters interact with and influence the classic characters we'll be seeing in the film, like Han, Lando, Chewbacca. If the name Kira sounds familiar to you, that's because it was the original name for Rey during the concept phase of The Force Awakens. It was later used as a production code name for Rey on the set and was leaked in 2014, leading some to believe that was the character's actual name, including the markers of display at Celebration Anaheim. But that wasn't all Williams had to say about the film. He further described his character as he wore this beautiful white kimono, was very regal, he had class, money, strength, charisma, and he knew how to fight. He was a warrior. He had a lot of prestige. If he lived in our world, he probably would probably hang out with Jay-Z and Beyonce, which seemed a little odd to me after the descriptions he gave, but okay. And then the update to this was they said our friends over at MakingStarWars.net have an extra tidbit about Emilia Clarke's character name in the Han Solo film. Apparently her name is spelled K-U-R-A, not K-I-R-A. So we'll be seeing Kira team up or face off with Han and Chewie on the silver screen this May. I don't know if it's like Keurig, like the Keurig coffee. I don't know.
Maybe. That's K-E-U, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be pronounced Kura.
Kura, something like that.
Either way, I'm not sure how I feel about Emilia Clarke. Now, clearly, she's amazing in Game of Thrones. Amazing in that show. But I was also concerned about Felicity Jones. So Felicity Jones pulled it out.
Yeah.
Emilia Clarke's an amazing actress, but I don't know if the fact that she is so well known because of Game of Thrones, if that's going to maybe throw it off. I don't know.
I've soured a bit on her character in Game of Thrones as far as her acting goes, and I don't know if she's just getting tired of the show or something or what, but the last couple of episodes, I was kind of like, yeah, neither here nor there on that. Early on, I thought she was pretty good, but hopefully she's the good choice for it,
Well, Felicity Jones, proved me wrong. Hopefully,
we didn't know anything about Felicity Jones, really.
Well, she had been in some things.
Yeah.
I mean, she. So yeah.
The HoloNet, your news source for current real-world news with a libertarian Star Wars twist.
Top Navy Admiral orders fleet-wide investigation following latest collision at sea. This is from the Washington Post. The Navy's top admiral on Monday ordered a fleet-wide review of seamanship and training in the Pacific after the service's fourth major accident at sea this year, a collision of the USS John S. McCain off of Singapore that left 10 sailors missing. The accident, which occurred east of the Strait of Malacca about 5:24 a.m. local time with an oil tanker 3 times the size of the guided missile destroyer, could be the Navy's second deadly ship collision in about 2 months. On June 17th, the destroyer USS Fitzgerald collided off the coast of Japan with a much heavier container ship, drowning 7 sailors after a berthing compartment inside the ship flooded in less than a minute. In addition, the guided missile cruiser USS Lake Champlain collided with a South Korean fishing vessel on May 9th off the Korean Peninsula, and the guided missile cruiser USS Antietam ran aground January 31st in Tokyo Bay near its home port of Yokosuka, Japan. Navy Admiral John Richardson, the chief of naval operations, said in a video released Monday in Washington that he was devastated and heartbroken by the disaster. The ship is now moored at Changi Naval Base in Singapore, with the amphibious assault ship USS America arriving to provide support and assistance to McCain's crew. Richardson said the trend of accidents in the Pacific demands more forceful action and ordered a one-day operational pause in Navy fleets across the world to make sure they are operating safely. More significantly, he ordered a separate investigation into how the Navy prepares its forces to operate in the Pacific.
This whole operational, the operational pause.
Yeah, can we just get a permanent pause?
First of all,
like
that's
an
just
operational
stupid.
stop?
Hey, everybody, just stay where you are for 24 hours. Don't move. Just make sure you're safe. I mean, seriously, what does he think that that's going to accomplish? That is ignorant. That is totally. Only the government could come up with something like that, right?
Hey, here's an idea. How about instead of floating around in the middle of trade routes, we back off China's shores a bit and bring our troops home?
Or, North Korea shores here lately.
Right.
Don't even get me started with that.
Yeah. They missed an opportunity here to place blame. I feel like the Empire would have broadcast all over the holonet how this was a heartless act carried out by the rebellion.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, exclusive. Secret Service depletes funds to pay agents because of Trump's frequent travels, large family.
Wow.
USAtoday.com. The Secret Service can no longer pay hundreds of agents it needs to carry out an expanded protective mission, in large part due to the sheer size of President Trump's family and efforts necessary to secure their multiple residences up and down the East Coast. Secret Service Director Randolph Tex Alice in an interview today with USA Today said more than 1,000 agents have already hit the federally mandated caps for salary and overtime allowances that were meant to last the entire year.
Wow.
The agency has faced a crushing workload since the height of the contentious election season, and it has not relented in the first 7 months of the administration. Agents must protect Trump, who has traveled almost every week to his properties in Florida, New Jersey, and Virginia, and his adult children, whose business trips and vacations have taken them across the country and overseas. The president has a large family, and our responsibility is required by law, Ailes said. I can't challenge that. I can't change that. I have no flexibility. Ailes said the service is grappling with an unprecedented number of White House protectees. Under Trump, 42 people have protection, a number that includes 18 members of his family.
Wow.
That's up from 31 during the Obama administration.
Yeah, that'll bust your budget.
Yeah,
for sure.
Overwork and constant travel have also been driving a recent exodus from the Secret Service ranks, yet without congressional intervention to provide additional funding, Ailes will not even be able to pay agents for the work they've already done.
Wow.
The compensation crunch is so serious that the director has begun discussions with key lawmakers to raise the combined salary and overtime cap for agents from $160,000 per year to $187,000 for at least the duration of Trump's first term.
Now, I know they work a lot of hours, but that compensation seems a bit high to me. I don't know. Whatever.
But even in such a proposal, even if such a proposal was approved, about 130 veteran agents would not be fully compensated for hundreds of hours already amassed, according to the agency. I don't see this changing in the near term, Ailes said.
Well, I mean, clearly those agents would have a lawsuit on their hands. They were contracted to do work.
Yeah.
They did the work. They're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Now, take away the whole, this is taxpayer funded. Take that out. Even in the private sector, they would have a lawsuit and be able to get paid for it.
Yeah, if it's not salary, if it's hourly, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it's the government. So, they're on salary, but then they still get paid overtime.
Right.
So,
Yep. So, both Republican and Democrat lawmakers expressed deep concern for the continuing stress on the agency, first thrust into turmoil 5 years ago with the disclosure about sexual misconduct by agents in Colombia and subsequent White House security breaches.
Well, now, my understanding, they say sexual misconduct, but they got some prostitutes, right?
I think that was the case.
I mean, that's a voluntary exchange.
Yeah.
If they're not raping somebody, if they're
Right,
if it's completely voluntary,
Yeah.
I don't see that as sexual misconduct personally. But that's just me.
No, I hear you. I'm right there with you. A special investigative panel formed after a particularly egregious 2014 White House breach also found that agents and uniform officers worked an unsustainable number of hours, which also contributed to troubling attrition rates. Yeah. While about 800 agents and uniformed officers were hired during the past year as part of an ongoing recruiting blitz to bolster the ranks, attrition limited the agency's net staffing gain to 300, according to agency records. And last year, Congress had to approve a one-time fix to ensure that 1,400 agents would be compensated for thousands of hours of overtime earned above compensation limits.
I mean, I have no doubt that Congress is going to pass whatever needs to be passed to pay these guys.
Sure. Yeah.
But my thing is, this is a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, first of all, maybe we should reevaluate how many people we're having to protect in the president's family for every president. You know, the thing that really bothers me about this is the Republicans threw a fit every time, and justifiably. Every time Obama went on a vacation or went on a trip because of the costs. And justifiably they should, because the costs are ridiculous. But I haven't heard a Republican say a single word about this.
Oh, yeah, it's
Not
amazing.
One.
It's weird how that happens.
Yeah. Imagine that.
You bring up a good point. I'm curious as to how protections decided at all. Is this just Trump's list? Here, guys, here you go. Can they just be like, no, we won't do that? Like, what's he gonna do if they say no? Fire the Secret Service, right? Like, they need him, right?
I don't know how much power he has. I mean, they're authorized by they're not under the executive, are they? I don't think they are.
Possibly not.
I don't know.
Yeah, if he's not, then he's got no power over them. Also, it's not really much of a secret service anymore when there's well over 1,000 agents, guys. Everybody knows who you are. Maybe we should think about renaming ourselves here. A couple of thoughts. First, the protection should just be for him and his immediate family.
I agree.
I don't understand why there's this many people. It shouldn't be like that for him. Shouldn't have been like that for Obama.
Well, the only caveat to that, of course, if we're going to have a president, a ruler, and he has a family, I mean, somebody could kidnap his aunt. And he probably cares about his aunt.
Yeah.
So I guess that could be used for blackmail or any number. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I can kind of understand, but at the same time, why are taxpayers having to pay for the protection of his family? This man's a billionaire, for crying out loud. Why isn't he paying for the protection of his family?
Well, you bring up another good point, and that gets me into the cost of all this, right? A private company would likely not only be cheaper, right, but also the atmosphere would be unlikely that to foster something like what happened in Colombia, right? Because they would be like, listen, you're fired, that's done,
right? Yeah, you're not a government employee who you're going to be sitting at desk for 5 years or whatever. No, you're gone.
Yeah. And also, I just want to make one other point, and you touched on this earlier. Let's be clear here, since USA Today is not being clear with us. The Secret Service is not paying for all this overtime. You are.
Yes.
Yes,
all me. It's all coming out of my paycheck. but you make a great point there. Yeah. All of this overtime, all of this extra coverage for 41 family members. Every penny of that is being paid by tax dollars and by inflation when they print extra money.
Yeah.
So either way, it's coming out of our
pockets.
Yeah. And that's ridiculous. If cover Trump, cover his wife, cover his kids, and then if Trump wants anybody else covered, he needs to pay for it.
Yeah, and this is exactly how it would work in the empire, right? We would take from the people that have stuff to create our government that you need because we tell you you need it.
Right. I mean, we pretty much live in the empire. We don't have a Darth Vader yet, but we're probably getting there.
Some people would make the argument for Trump, right?
Yeah.
Berkeley Council passes urgency rules for non-permitted rallies. This is from eastbaytimes.com. The city council on August 18th approved an urgency ordinance authorizing the city manager to issue rules for unpermitted events over the objections of numerous speakers who warned it is unnecessary, too broad, susceptible to abuse, and thus a threat to free speech. The ordinance passed 7-1, with Councilwoman Cheryl Davila voting no. Thank you, Cheryl.
Right.
At least there was one.
One logical.
Yep. Councilman Chris Worthington was absent. The action came as the city prepares for possible confrontations on August 27th based on right-wing rally announcements on social media. A group calling itself No to Marxism in America announced a rally for 1 to 5 p.m. August 27th in Martin Luther King Jr. Civic Center Park. The ordinance authorizes the city manager or his or her designee to issue a temporary regulations in a defined area and consistent with the First Amendment to preserve public health, public safety, and property on city streets and sidewalks during planned but unpermitted events. It would, among other provisions, enable the prohibition of items that can be used as weapons or are otherwise deemed hazardous. The council action follows March 4th rally and counter-rally focusing on President Donald Trump and an alt-right and pro-Trump free speech rally on April 15th, both in Martin Luther King Jr. Civic Center Park.
I just have to say this. A pro-Trump rally on April 15th, on tax day. These guys went out to be pro-Trump, pro the guy who's taking all of your money from you. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's like the people who have a "Don't Tread on Me" sticker on the back of their truck and also have an American flag. Right. I mean, who do you think is going to be doing the treading, people?
So what do we got here? So the April 15th rally, for which the city has said no permits were issued or sought, was met with a counter-rally. The event spilled over into the streets near the park where fights broke out, and it resulted in at least 20 arrests and a dozen odd reported injuries. Police recovered several cans of pepper spray, several knives, and dozens of sticks, skateboards, and other blunt objects in the course of the day. Deputy City Manager Jovan Grogan said that temporary emergency rules were in effect on April 15th, but they applied only to the park, not to the streets, a shortcoming that the ordinance would fix. Several speakers, however, said the ordinance could be turned against free speech or otherwise misused in the future, which it already is.
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. And that by delegating sweeping powers to the city manager and designees to make rules, the council was abdicating its authority to make policy. We have seen in this country the disastrous consequences of rushing to pass laws in response to perceived dangers without taking time to consider whether those laws are necessary and their possible unintended consequences, Osha Newman, attorney for the East Bay Community Law Center, said in a letter to the council. It would be truly unfortunate if Berkeley, of all cities, knowing what it was in the past, in response to threat of white supremacists in our midst, passed an ordinance that would give the city manager authority to shut down this form of political expression, Newman said, and added, when we pass legalization in a rush, we don't have time to think. The ordinance goes into the books, and we have to live with it. The ordinance will at least have a sunset on December 31st, unless the council extends it, which wouldn't surprise me.
Well, at least they have a sunset. I mean, that's if you're going to pass a legislation like this, kind of knee jerk, at least put a sunset
clause.
But still, I mean, there is so much wrong with this.
Yeah,
I mean, Berkeley City Council does not have any right to restrict freedom of speech, and this goes to the tragedy of the commons. You know, when you have public areas, you have a free speech right there, regardless of what the Berkeley City Council or anybody else says. That's not a constitutional right; that's a human right.
Yeah, that's the price you pay for having the public area.
Right. If you're going to steal money from me to pay for that public area, then I have the right to speak there.
Yeah.
The way to fix this, get rid of public property.
Yeah.
Make everything private, and then you don't have that problem.
Yeah.
Then if I want to speak on this in this specific area and you own that specific area, I have to come to you and ask your permission to speak there because you're the one who makes that rule for your private property, and I make that rule for my private property.
Yeah.
If I don't want you coming and doing Resist the Empire podcast to my house, I can tell you not to because it's my property.
And it will be only one voice.
Right, that would really suck.
I like how eager they are to point out the ordinance authorizes the city manager or designee to issue temporary regulations in a defined area consistent with the First Amendment, and then later on say, among other things, it would enable prohibition of items that can be used as weapons, thereby not being consistent with the Second Amendment.
Well, I mean, California is always pretty draconian in that area, let's be honest.
Yeah, and like as you said before, if you're in a public area, there should be no restrictions on said free speech.
Amen.
The city council clearly did not watch episode 2 in the creations of the Emergency Powers Act. If they had, the people, you know, if you had watched this, you would see what's coming here. You don't just give that kind of sweeping authority to a person.
Well, let's be honest. It worked for the emperor for, 30 years or so?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know. I mean, these people will be long dead by 30 years.
Oh, man. This story is heartbreaking. A couple forced to hand adopted son back to biological parents. The father murders the baby weeks later. This is from independent.co.uk. A couple have been awarded compensation of $3.25 million after their adopted baby son was murdered by his birth father weeks after he regained custody of the child. Rachel and Heidi McFarland sued their lawyer, Jason Reaper, for malpractice after he wrongly led them to believe 3-month-old Gabrielle's biological parents had signed release of custody papers. The couple had arranged to adopt the child from Rachel's teenage coworker, Markia Atkins, and were present at his birth in Des Moines, Iowa in December of 2013. But Ms. Atkins later changed her mind and reclaimed custody of the child, which she was able to do because she had not signed the release forms. 5 weeks later, the infant was shaken to death by his 17-year-old father, Drew James Wheeler Smith. The teenager was later convicted of second-degree murder and jailed for 50 years. A judge at the Iowa District Court for Polk County awarded the settlement after ruling the lawyer acted negligently. The release of custody never got signed by either birth parent. Obviously, our child and us weren't a priority to Mr. Raper, Rachel told People magazine. She added she did not expect to receive much of the compensation. We're just happy he was found negligent, she said. That's what our goal was. We'll not see any money from this. After coaching his biological mother through labor, the couple had Gabrielle for 78 days after his birth. So I guess it's Gabriel, because it's a boy. I'm assuming it's pronounced
Probably,
Gabriel. Yeah. Rachel said, adoption wasn't even our number one choice, but because it was private, it seemed tailor-made for us, and we thought this could be our chance to become parents. The birth mom didn't care if we were a same-sex couple. It just seemed too good to be true, and it was too good to be true. They were told in March 2014 that Ms. Atkins wanted her son back. Mr. Raper's lawyer said he would look to challenge the jury's verdict in the civil trial, which focused on the adoption case and not the child's murder. You can't control the emotion of a birth mom, and you can't control the emotions of a 16-year-old birth mom, said David Brown. At the end, the kid wasn't going to sign the papers, and the suggestion that Jason was to force her to do it would be unethical for him. But Roxanne Conlon, who represented the adoptive parents, claimed Mr. Raper just didn't get around to getting the form signed. If the lawyer had done what he was supposed to do, the birth mother would have signed a document called a release of custody, and 4 days after she signed it, it would have been almost impossible for her or the baby's father to take Gabriel away from them, she wrote on Facebook. So it definitely
There's so much wrong with this.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like it seems at the very least the lawyer misled them, right?
I mean, the lawyer should be disbarred. He
Right,
should lose his
yeah.
license to practice law,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, because his actions directly led to this child's death.
Yeah.
It also to the heartbreak of the family that it was taken from. He did not do his job. He did not make sure that the contracts and the pieces of paper that needed to be signed were signed by all parties involved. So
Right.
that's one thing wrong with this. Number two is this moron who shook his baby to death. I mean, my goodness, this is 2017. Don't people know you don't shake a baby? I mean, come on. That is just heartbreaking to me. I mean, this was
I'm sure
3
he did
months
know.
old?
He was a 17-year-old kid that had no responsibilities whatsoever, you know? I mean, he probably didn't care at all.
Yeah.
But I mean, the statement where, you know, they suggesting that the lawyer forced the girl to sign the papers or whatever, it's not even about that. Like, if the girl wasn't going to sign the papers, he's got a responsibility to tell the people that are taking care of the kid she's not signing the papers. You know,
the baby should never have transferred until the papers
were signed
period.
anyway.
I mean, that should never have happened. Unless he held a gun to her head, he didn't force her. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
They can say that all day long.
Yeah.
He may have put some peer pressure on her or whatever, just because that kid down
Well,
the road.
she never even signed it. I mean, that's like how they ended up with him back. So,
But,
I mean,
but if he had, you know,
right.
that's ridiculous. I mean, the kid down the street can't force me to smoke that cigarette. He can pressure me into it,
Right.
you know, but that's still my choice.
Yeah.
So that whole thing is just ridiculous. There's way too much wrong with this to even the fact that. That the contracts were never signed. The child should never have been transferred until the contracts were signed. That would have solved
78 days. That's 2.5 months.
Right.
They had this kid for 2.5 months, and it was never actually officially done.
Yeah, but it's heartbreaking for the couple. I just and probably for the mother too. I mean, because I'm sure she's heartbroken over this as well. When her kid's dead, and the guy is going to spend probably 50 years or hopefully the rest of his life in prison. That's what I'd love to see.
Yeah. So, so do the Jedi get signed documentation when they take children into the order?
So that's a great question. I mean, Qui-Gon did get Anakin's mother's permission.
Right.
So
we know he's got verbal permission.
Right. Is that indicative of them getting permission all the time? I obviously we don't
depend
know.
on situation, maybe.
Right. I would imagine that the Jedi probably does get permission.
Right.
But does that remove all of the parents' rights from then on? In an adoption, if you do it properly, as far as I'm concerned, that should remove all of the rights and it
does in the court system anyway.
And you can even in a private adoption, you could even set parameters to that. Say you want your kid to be able to know what happened by the time he's 16.
Right.
Write that into the contract.
Oh yeah, sure.
There's so many different things that you can do.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily shut the biological parent off for life. I mean, my brother and his partner adopted, and they still see his biological mother from time to time. They'll, she's like up in Vermont or whatever, so it's not too far, so it's these things can be arranged. But yeah, I was just curious about that.
Well, I mean, it's just terrible, and I feel bad for everybody involved in this, except for that Drew James Wheeler Smith, the 17-year-old father. He can just burn for all I care.
Which Star Wars canon character will we dissect in this episode of Galaxy's Smallest Political Quiz?
So, Brian, who did you pick this week?
This week we've got Galen Erso.
Yep. That's a good one because his story's finished as far as we know. So
pretty
he's
much.
Definitely not coming back.
Yep. So Galen Walton Erso. Did you know that was his middle name?
I don't know. Was that in the?
It must have been in the books.
Yeah,
because I grabbed this from Wikipedia. Usually the little blurb about who it is. But he was a human male scientist and leading galactic authority on crystallography and energy enrichment. Born on the planet Grange and agriculture backwater world, Erso was drafted into the Republic Futures program, where his skill and intelligence ultimately led him to become a critical, if reluctant, component in the development of the DS-1 platform. In doing so, Erso managed to subtly sabotage its design in a way that ultimately proved disastrous for the Galactic Empire. One of the most renowned polymaths in the galaxy, Galen was a gifted theoretician, mathematician, and experimental physicist. Galen was a recipient of the Kuwait Systems Engineering Medal, the Ashgad Prize, and Roche Foundation Prize. He was married to Lyra Erso and was father to Jin Erso.
Why does that sound familiar? So how we do this is we break this down. We ask 5 economic questions and 5 personal issue questions and determine if they are libertarian based on the answers we think that they would give. The first question in the personal issues category is government should not censor speech, press, media, or the HoloNet.
Yeah, so here I want to agree. I think he had so many secrets he couldn't tell anyone with regards to his clearances, etc., that it literally stifled his ability to communicate regularly with his wife and daughter, which was why he was so distant from them quite a bit in the novels. He was always deep into his work, but I don't think that was the sole reason there was that distance there. So those oaths or clearances, they might not necessarily equate to censorship, depending on where one might fall in the argument, but it's about the closest example that I can think of something like that he might have to deal with.
Even in the private sector, though, we have employees who, for various reasons can't talk about specific things with their families. So we will probably see that even in some private sector jobs.
Sure.
However, I can't disagree with you on this one. So service should be voluntary. The Jedi policy on the warding of children who are force sensitives and the conscription of soldiers by the Empire is immoral.
This one was simple for me. It's agree. Galen was a pacifist. He wouldn't agree to service by force.
Well, especially since he was forced into service. So, absolutely. Yeah, most people who have been conscripted don't like conscription.
Yeah, it's weird how it works out.
Right. There should be no laws regarding possession of weapons for personal use.
And this I actually went disagree. Knowing that he was a pacifist, and being susceptible to being fooled or convinced. We've seen this play out in the books, and not being interested in politics. It's likely he could fall into thinking that creating gun laws would make the galaxy a safer place. So I went disagree on this.
My only concern with that is that Lyra Erso would have probably gone to jail then because she had a pistol.
Probably.
And, she, pointed it at, oh my goodness.
Yeah, at Krennic.
Yeah, thank you, Krennic.
And shot Krennic.
Right. So, was he aware of that gun?
If he wasn't, were they even in a spot where law applied at the time?
Well, they were in the galaxy, so...
I
don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Next question. Repeal laws prohibiting adult possession and use of drugs.
Yeah, so I wouldn't agree. Not for conventional reasons, though. Being a scientist through and through, he would want access to any and all substances for scientific purposes, and so he probably would agree to repeal.
And that brings up a great point. I don't know if you've heard, but MDMA is now being heavily looked at for PTSD. As a matter of fact, they did a trial on MDMA, and 10 out of the 12 people in the trial, and it was a small trial, but even 10 out of the 12 people saw a significant improvement of their PTSD, and many of those became unindicated for PTSD to the point where they no longer had PTSD.
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues that we have with all of these drug laws is that
Just
it's
make
been
it
impossible to
illegal.
test MDMA until a special law was passed to do it.
Yeah.
Same with marijuana, same with all of these other drugs that could be beneficial.
Yeah.
Next question. There should be no requirement to register as a force sensitive with the Galactic Empire.
Yeah, so I went maybe on this one. I could be convinced in either direction on this. The humanity side of him would probably see something like wearing a star on your chest in 1941 Germany, but the scientist side of him may be interested in the force abilities as it relates to scientific studies. So I kind of be talked in either direction here.
And if you're going to draw parallels to our current, or our time and area in our galaxy, some scientists work in the private sector and don't get the benefits of government, being able to force things. Whereas in the public sector, the government has a lot of pull and can do certain things that the private sector
can't. Yeah.
So, and he was obviously a government scientist.
Yeah.
So I could probably see him, having wanting to see that.
Yeah.
So the personal score we receive out of this one is a 70. So on economic issues and imperial alliances with corporations and banking cartels, corporatism is picking winners and losers in the marketplace.
Yeah, so I went maybe on this one. I feel like if he were working for a corporation subservient to a political arm, he may not care as long as he can continue his research and as long as the research wasn't hurting anyone, and that's the big caveat, I suppose.
He, as a pacifist, he definitely seemed pro-government to me as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he may have been anti-capitalist. Based on he could have taken his skills and gone to work for the private sector, but he chose to run away and not. Right. Part of that was maybe him hiding.
Part of it was hot. Yeah.
But he could have gone to the wild regions or something and maybe worked for a private company. Yeah. The next one is in-government barriers to intergalactic free trade.
Yeah, so I put maybe for this as well. He generally had anything he needed from the Empire. Right. I feel like he may have been indifferent to this, really, almost, as just something not on his radar, really.
I can see that. Yeah. Let's see. Science and technological advancements should not be controlled or regulated by the Empire. Yeah,
so I wouldn't agree here. As a scientist, he would have wanted this when he was working for the Empire, as well as when he wasn't working for the Empire. No matter where he was, he would never want any kind of impediments to his work, right? Sure. As a scientist, It's always about your work. That's it.
Yep, I definitely agree with that. The career path of individuals in the planetary division of labor should not be dictated by the Empire.
So I went maybe, though here he could be indifferent as well. Galen saw firsthand how a planetary system could be used for one specific task. It goes into this in the books, based on whatever resources was on a given planet and where the Empire designated something to be completed. So maybe, and as a scientist, you generally fall into kind of like the military thing as well, right? Where this is what your specific duty is. You go here, you do this kind of thing.
Well, I personally think you would agree with this one because, for all intents and purposes, he was forced to work on this specific project. He could have worked on other projects if he had been able to choose. A project
for
that
sure.
didn't have military applications.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But he didn't have that choice. Yeah. So I think he'd have to agree with this one.
That's a good point.
Taxation is theft, including sovereign planetary funds taken by the empire as tribute.
Yeah, so this I actually wouldn't disagree. Even though he had no problems living off the land with his own family and not interfering with anyone else, money extracted from others was clearly used to fuel his research. I think it'd be foolish to think that he wouldn't realize where this money's coming from, as intelligent as he is, but he probably just didn't really think about it in the end.
Right, and I agree with you on this. He was getting paid somehow. His research was being paid for somehow. The Kyber crystals were being stolen.
Right.
And all of the military to do that was funded by taxes. Yeah. So I have to agree with you on that one. So this leaves us with an economic score of 50 or 60 if you go with my difference there. Yeah. So the bonus question is: did this character initiate force in the Star Wars universe canon?
And not to my recollection in the entire books, which really, kind of holds true with his whole pacifist, description.
I think he would die before he initiated.
Yeah, in fact, he almost did die at the hands of some droids, or that were about to kill him in his origins. If you read into his origins and whatnot, but just because he didn't initiate violence doesn't necessarily mean he's a libertarian.
Right.
I tend to think he's more of a centrist, knowing what we know about him.
Yeah, and his score pretty much puts him in the centrist category as well. I'd have to agree with that. I think that as a government scientist, though, he would probably be a little more authoritarian.
It's
maybe,
possible,
but who knows? He was a pacifist either way. So either way, he would have taken a bullet before he protected his life, which I find despicable. Frankly.
Yeah.
Resistance Review. Your favorite Star Wars canon movies, TV shows, books, comics, and more. Reviewed by our hosts.
All right, so we're getting back into the showdown on Smuggler's Moon. This is from Volume 2, a trade paperback compilation of Marvel's comic Star Wars ongoing series. This is issues 7 through 12, released January 26, 2016, written by Jason Aaron, penciled by Simone Bianchi and Stuart Eminem. He also did the cover art.
Yep.
So the Smuggler's Moon, this is part 2. We start off, we're back on Nar Shaddaa, the Smuggler's Moon, where Luke's trying to keep up with the changeling that took off with his lightsaber. If you remember from the last episode, this guy had this kind of electro glove thing that, took his lightsaber away from him and then just started running. So we just get a lot of cool imagery. It's kind of a dirty looking city, but it's really big. Luke's chasing him. The changeling jumps off of the building, and he's hanging onto the bottom of this craft that's in the air, that's a hovering craft or whatever, with this cool little mini gravitational pull glove thing. And Luke makes this crazy jump, indicating to the reader that he's used the Force as no normal person would make this jump, and you can tell by the expression from the changeling. And he catches this guy by the ankle. And the glove can't handle the weight of the both of them, so they both end up falling very far from the looks of it.
Yeah, and so at the bottom of their fall, excuse me, and so they survived the fall from this height. How did they do that? Who knows? But their gravity may not be as harsh as ours. But so the changeling asks how Luke was able to jump so far, and Luke says he's a Skywalker. He can walk the sky, right? He asks R2, who shows up, about the others from the cantina that were chasing them, and he says that they stopped, and he isn't sure why they stopped. The changeling replies that they are in Hutta Town now, and before he can finish, a giant hut says that it means that him and his saber belong to Gracchus the Hutt. Mm-hmm. We now have a couple of Magna Guards with him, and it should be noted that he's wearing a necklace of lightsabers, a bit of a reminder of General Grievous.
Yes, yeah. Thought it was very interesting.
Yep.
A confusing scene for me starts off next, where we're in the Outer Rim on an unknown world. We come back to Leia, Han, and Sana. The TIE fighters are now parked on the moon and getting broken up messages about apprehending the rebels. Though at the end of Part 8, they were getting shot at by the TIE fighters, and I'm pretty sure those things weren't set for stun.
Right.
They were pretty much blasting away.
Yep.
Leia decides to start shooting because I guess she knows they're trying to capture them. But then, and I had an issue with this part. This is a puzzling move. The pilots are yelling to take her down, and their weapons are definitely not set for stun, which completely disregards their orders.
Right.
They get on Sana's ship and get out before more TIE fighters come in.
Yep. So now we're back to Luke, and he's fighting these Magna Guards, and it's really great stuff. Yeah. So I guess he got tired, and he gives up. Yeah. The changeling remarks to Gracchus that Luke said his father was a Jedi and that he was trying to get to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Luke says he doesn't want any trouble, of course, and Gracchus says he came to the wrong moon and punches him out.
A hut punch.
Right, right. Gracchus is, he's huge and looks bigger than Jabba even. They didn't seem to have as much fat, maybe more muscle than Jabba too, which, we've seen various different sizes of huts in some of the cartoons. When Luke awakens in a dark room, Gracchus asks if he knows what the holocron is.
Yeah, he's holding a holocron.
Right.
So Luke asks where he is, and Gracchus says, "In my home." Now answer the question. Luke says no, and he's looking around and sees all of these artifacts, asking what all this stuff is. Gracchus says it's the remains of the Jedi. He collects these things. He gives Luke until the count of 5 to open the holocron. He's able to do so at the last moment. He doesn't open just the holocron that Gracchus is holding, but all of the holocrons in the room.
Right.
And you see all these holocrons talking about the different messages and teachings they have to offer. The one Gracchus is holding is saying, whoever's seeing this, it's up to you now. Don't let our deaths have been in vain. Don't let this be the end of the Jedi. Gracchus tells Luke he's the last Jedi after telling him he'll make a fine addition to his collection after all. He tells the guards to take him to the Game Master and see that he's made ready for the arena and prepares to receive his guests. And we see R2 outside the building on his own. I guess they just didn't take him with them, I guess.
Well, he's a droid. Most people don't pay attention to droids.
It's true, I suppose.
So we then head back to, we see Santa trying to outmaneuver the fighters in their escape, and Leia was trying to send a distress call, and Senna says to forget them and go on to the cannons. Han, of course, thinks he should be piloting. Imagine that, right? Yeah. Then it cuts to the Rebellion's fleet in space, and it says that they've received a distress call, but it's not from Senna's ship. It's from an R2 droid on Nar Shaddaa. Yeah. It's, of course, Luke's R2 unit. Mm. And they know that Luke has been kidnapped by a local crime lord, a Hutt. Mon Mothma, Dodonna, and Akbar discuss how to get him back, and Mothma points out that they can't give an order to move in force because a Hutt on a moon like Nar Shaddaa and a covert team to go in without support would be suicide, of course. So she decides that she can't save him, even if it was somebody that someone who saved so many, like Luke did. Yeah. And Mothma says she can't imagine anyone who among the Alliance will be brave or insane enough to volunteer for something like that. But it's cut off with a giant Chewie roar. Yeah. And a 3PO saying that, we should leave at once. I beg your pardon, we? Oh, dear.
Yep, 3PO along for the ride. Right. So now we go into number 10. This is Showdown on the Smuggler's Moon, Part 3. Part 3 starts off with Han saying she may not look like much of a princess, but she sure shoots like one.
Right.
I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. Perhaps princesses get extra shooting practice or something. I'm not really sure. Leia complains about having to listen to 2 solos talk. Santa tells them both to stop yapping, and someone says they have a better idea. Why doesn't she just get them out of there? And naturally, she's waiting on the nav computer. I've noticed that people tend to be very impatient when the pilot is taking so long to get people out of sticky situations. Even though it would seem most people complaining, like in the Star Wars universe, that have piloted themselves and know that it takes time for the nav computer to plot the course for hyperspace.
Right. This is the first time you've traveled in hyperspace.
It seems like this happens all the time.
Right. Leia makes a comment saying that she hopes Santa didn't get the hyperdrive from the same place that Han got his. And Santa comments that it sounds like somebody's been for a ride in the Falcon. That was great. Yeah. Santa can't believe that this thing's even space-worthy still. She says that she bets Han told her all about the Kessel Run and how he loves to bring that up all the time. Yeah. And 12, not 14. Yeah. It makes the Falcon sound like the fastest ship in all the galaxy, and maybe it would be if it wasn't for one minor detail that she's sitting in the fastest ship now, the Volt Cobra, the ship that Han wishes he had. I love that.
Yeah, she's a bit of a firecracker.
She is, yeah.
3PO and Chewie come into Nar Shaddaa with the Falcon, and 3PO comments that a Wookiee would feel more comfortable in a place like this compared to a meeting room full of uniformed people, and that's what worries him. 3PO assumes Chewie won't have a problem finding Luke while he waits in the Falcon, and then questions why Chewie is laughing and says he doesn't understand Wookiee humor. And of course, the next scene is 3PO standing in the middle of a city by himself. He questions a couple of droids about an R2 unit who are very helpful in showing 3PO the alley they went down. Naturally, he just fell for a trap where they plan on dismantling him. Chewie then comes in and rips them apart while 3PO questions again about the R2 unit.
Sounds very much like what happened to 3PO in Cloud City.
Yeah.
So Luke gets brought out into this arena kind of thing, and it's presented he's presented to the Games Master. And this Games Master is going to make sure that he puts on a good show when he dies. Luke says that he's not going to fight for the enjoyment of a hut, and the Games Master says, oh yeah, you will. He will because Luke wants to learn, and this man can teach him. Luke says he can't teach him what he wants to know, which of course are the Jedi arts. He fights away from the guards and starts walking back to where they brought him in. The Games Master says the Jedi Temple on Coruscant doesn't exist anymore. It's the Imperial Palace now, and whatever he was hoping to find is long gone. All the temples are gone, just like all the Jedi. And he says, for all we know, the only Jedi left are what's locked in Gracchus's vault. The holocrons contain all of the teachings of the Jedi and can answer any questions that he could possibly ask, if he lives long enough, of course. The cuffs come off and he catches his lightsaber as the Games Master throws it to him, and he says that if he's hoping to save what's left of the Jedi, he'd better hurry and let's see what you've got. And of course they start fighting, and Luke gets his butt beat pretty quick.
Yeah, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
So 3PO and Chewie walk into the same bar that Luke walked into in the last, in part 1 of the Smuggler's Moon that we read last episode. 3PO directly inquires as to a friend who is now a prisoner of someone known as Gracchus the Hutt. He seeks confirmation, and the bartender we met earlier asks if that's a threat because he doesn't take kindly to threats from droids, and they don't even allow droids in there, and come to think of it, they aren't fond of Wookiees either.
Of course.
Chewie stops 3PO from walking away because 3PO is trying to get out of there, and 3PO states that anyone who doesn't want to be physically inconvenienced should look for somewhere else to go, and quickly.
Right.
So I love this scene. We get two like little square scenes in the comic, and the first one, it's like a picture of like outside the bar, and then the next picture, it's the same exact picture except a guy is coming through a broken window.
Right.
Which is great.
Yeah. Broken window fallacy. That increased the economics of that city because they had a broken window.
Yeah.
Luke is now practicing with the Magna Guards as Gracchus is talking to the Games Master, and Gracchus is curious how Luke is coming along. He says that Luke is strong in the Force, but has only received cursory training at best, and that's an overstatement.
Yeah.
Gracchus states they don't need him to beat Darth Vader in combat, only to die with flourish. The Games Master says he can die. Gracchus said it will be a packed house and to have him ready. The Games Master replies that he always has them ready. Gracchus then takes him to a cage and that's on tank track so they can roll him in, and a giant beast that's much better than many others. They pass on.
Yeah, much bigger.
Yeah, much bigger, right. Yeah. And so it surprises even the Games Master, and he says that even if Luke was a Jedi, he's not sure how long he'd last against that. Gracchus says everything that's ever lived has died in his arena except a Jedi.
Yeah.
And of course he wants to fix that.
Yeah. So we come back to Han, Leia, and Sana after they drop out of hyperspace. Han believes they lost the Imperials. Han questions what Sana wants with him, and Sana says that Han can't admit when he's caught. She goes on about how he keeps acting like the marriage on Stennis never happened. He says they both know what happened there, and then they're interrupted by Leia saying they need to go to Nar Shaddaa after talking with the rebel fleet. Luke's in trouble. Sana says, too bad for Luke.
Right.
She hasn't succumbed to the seductive wiles of the rebellion, unlike Han. And Han questions why he would ever go there. Leia makes a deal with Sana that she can have Han if she takes her to Nar Shaddaa. Han does not like this deal.
Right. So then we go back, and Chewie's hanging the bartender by his foot off the side of a building and giving up the location on Luke. He foolishly says that Luke is going to die in the arena, but if he hurries, he can die along with him. 3PO asks will the bartender win, and after a Chewie response, he remarks that it was nice of Chewie to let the bartender go. He didn't die, he just landed on some floating trash heap.
Yeah, just dropped him off the building.
A rough-looking Gungan is telling somebody that he knows that he saw Chewbacca earlier. He'd beat him at Jajarik before. And an interesting note here, the Gungan has what's essentially an eye patch over one of his eyes.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting dude.
So where there's Chewbacca, Han Solo's, of course, never far behind. And he's hoping to get some payment for the information. The next scene is Dengar asking where he saw this Wookiee.
Yeah, so it's revealed it's Dengar here, right?
So, reading this this comics again with all the news going on with Han Solo, it makes me wonder if maybe Santa will make an appearance.
That would be very interesting.
That would
I
be
could
an
see
interesting
that
tie-in.
Yeah, I thought about that as well.
I would definitely love to see them. They're doing a really good job of tying some of the book stuff into the movies and vice versa. I would really love to see them tie in some of this great material from the comics, and also with the Obi-Wan Kenobi stuff, with the diary. Maybe we can see him writing in the diary that Luke finds.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think that they could really do some really fun stuff with that.
Yeah.
And I think with Pablo Hidalgo, I think that we could possibly see that because he seems to really be interested in doing a lot of tie-ins.
Yeah, I like that. I will say that I've really enjoyed this comic series, but I was definitely disappointed with this comic. There were what I saw is really plot flaws in this particular these two comics. The first one was what I mentioned earlier, where the stormtroopers first they come down like blasting on them, but then they're saying then they're parked on the moon and they're getting this message. All right, so even if they didn't get the message until after they landed, like apprehend them. Mm-hmm. Like they were clearly just shooting away when Leia started shooting. So that was like a disregard in orders, which they don't really typically do. And I think I'd be giving the writers too much credit if I said there was something more to this. And then the other thing that bothered me a lot was Gracchus was very interested in opening up the holocrons.
Right.
And then when he finds somebody to open up the holocrons, he wants them to immediately die in the arena just for some monetary gain. Right. Where the guy's clearly not hurting for money.
Right. And possibly the very last Jedi in existence. Yeah. Nobody knows of any other Jedi in the universe.
Yeah. So I saw that as a serious flaw.
Sure.
So I will say that the next two are really cool. Introduces new character. Finishes. It's a good story arc finish. So we'll finish that up next week. Yep. But I was a little disappointed with this one. Yeah. I mean,
definitely wasn't my best. Wasn't my favorite in the comics. I've read all of the ones that are out now. Yeah. There are definitely some that are better, but there are definitely some that are a lot worse. Yeah. Some of the Poe Dameron stuff, for example, I'm not as thrilled with. No. Not as much. Okay. But anyway, so we do this and we love doing this, but we need some help from you guys. What I would love for you to do is, one thing that really helps get the show out is iTunes ratings and reviews. And if you could go give us a rating and a review, that really helps us out a lot. And you can do that from iTunes. Another thing that really helps us out is sharing. We post a meme every day on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing that helps us get more followers, which helps us get more listeners. So if you can do that, that would be fantastic. And of course, you can like us on Facebook and Twitter, and even subscribe to our YouTube channel. That helps a lot as well. So thanks so much, guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And until next time,
may the non-initiation of Force be with you.
Thank you for listening to Resist the Empire. Find us online at resisttheempirepodcast.com and on Twitter at Empire Resister. Never miss an episode by subscribing on any podcatcher or by going to resisttheempirepodcast.com/subscribe. This has been a PAX Libertas Productions podcast.